we're back.
Welcome to the Digs show. That is
We digging
just a couple
ourselves a hole.
dads chatting about stuff.
Yep, plenty to talk
Digging a
about.
hole.
Yeah, we're always digging a hole for ourselves in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah. I don't know what kind of hole I'm digging today. Hopefully, it's not a grave.
No.
I do feel tired though.
Oh, I hear
My
that.
word, haven't been sleeping well.
You
It's
too?
catching up with me. It always. Me too. Yeah. Well,
I'm not sleeping well at all lately. I'm just like not. I'm like up until like 1, 2 in the morning. Just can't fall asleep. And I'm not. It's not like I'm like down in caffeine either. I can't sleep. I don't know. I'm like, come on. Shouldn't be this bad.
always something, one thing or another.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, it's been kind of up and down in Houston. It's been like muggy one day and then cool in the evening, and then the next day it's raining and then it's muggy again and then it's cool again, and we're like, okay, I don't know how to dress anymore. I'm just gonna stay inside. Something, one thing or another. Brief power outage today, 20 minutes. So yeah, but what's it like up in Wisconsin right now?
Cool. And I use that term relatively because in Texas it's freezing, like figuratively.
But
it's like in
literally
the
freezing.
It's
40s. You're calling freezing cool now.
40s, 50s is freezing in Texas talk. But yeah, at night we're probably going to be starting to get probably around what is it? Close to freezing at nights. So it's usually getting close. Had to go make sure I got what do you call it? Gloves for my son today because he's outgrown his other snow gloves. So when the snow hits, he'll have a pair of gloves that he can wear outside in the snow.
That's important. That's important in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We ever have gloves out here?
Yeah, we were warm for a while, and I was like, hey, how about we go, outside and play? And everyone, the kids are kind of like near the end of summer, and they're like, you know what? I can't wait for winter. And I'm like, why? He's like, because then we'll have snow to play with. And I'm like, okay. It's like we're looking forward to snow now. It's like they want to play in that. I'm like, I kind of get that. When we were in Texas, my kids like to play in the dirt and the sand and stuff like that. Snow is like this building medium that I think kids really relate to. Like, I get that.
Yeah. And it changes the appearance of everything. Like you know what the world looks like, and then suddenly it's all white, and you can actually build with it. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool. I had a funny thing that happened though. We were gonna watch mass a couple Sundays ago, and I was like, oh, we should watch the one that Eric streams. So I went to YouTube on our TV, and I was like, wait, let's go find the one from St. Francis Borgia. So I started searching, and I couldn't find like St. Francis Borgia, and there were like 3 or 4 of them, and I'm like, oh, I don't even know which one it is, because I didn't know your logo or anything. So I chose one because there was no location information, and so I'm like, well, I hope this is the right one. And we watched it, and the guy started referencing Washington, and I'm like, that doesn't look right to me. But we watched mass anyway. And it turns out we had been watching mass from St. Francis Borgia in Washington, Missouri, not Cedarburg, Wisconsin.
Yeah, ours is a big cross on it. So
yeah, I don't think theirs was nearly as good as yours.
Yeah, I was putting like nice logos and or like scenes and stuff on it, but they to help take things off of my plate, they scheduled it themselves. So I just never. They put their own image in there now, so it's like a bunch of people around the priests around the altar. So I'm like now it's just like a photo. So it's like, okay, cool. So it's nice that they're taking the initiative to sort of help out there and just get all that stuff done. So all I have to do is show up and stream it. So, but yeah, it's St. Francis Borgia, Cedarburg is I think how it's put up there. So
Cedarburg, Wisconsin. Thou don't accept any substitutes. Cedarburg, Wisconsin is the one you want.
Great place to live and visit. So at least we're enjoying it so far.
I'm not visiting during the winter though. Sorry.
I don't see why not. It was actually quite fun. I remember when we first came up here, like it was freezing, and I remember like we were just coming up here just to see if we wanted it, like if it would work, talk to the priest, talk to the community, stuff like that. And it was just like I remember we were walking around downtown Cedarburg, which is a small old town, and I'm feeling this cold wind on my face, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we would be like living this cold weather all the time. And I was like, that's gonna be an adjustment if we were to do it. So, and it would be colder. And sure enough, when we moved and I made the commitment, it was like polar vortex. We were in the negative teens. That everyone that was around when we got here was like, this is usually northern Wisconsin weather. I was like, okay. I was like, so I'm like this past winter, I'm like, okay, so it shouldn't be this bad. So this year I'm hoping for, freezing and stuff like that. Hasn't, hopefully it won't get into the teens or anything. So far, negatives.
The
rare.
You want southern Wisconsin weather.
Exactly. So I just thought it was interesting. Everyone was apologizing. This is usually northern Wisconsin weather. I'm like, okay. I didn't know there was that much of a shift in between north and south, but it's amazing what the difference between 3 hours can do. And I'm like,
And the lake can make a difference.
Yeah, positioning of the lake. They often like to call lake effect up here. Like, you get that, humidity and, extra, moisture and stuff off of the lake. So
yeah, but there's no dragons.
No dragons.
Lakes make me think of dragons, like Lake Town in The Hobbit. And so
yeah,
Smaug coming down, burning the town off the lake. Yeah.
No, the closest thing we have to a dragon is Canada.
the fierce Canadian dragon to your north.
Exactly. The fierce, cold Canadian dragon.
That's amazing. So, never heard of Canada and dragons at the same time. I think it's the first, actually.
The up north dragon, the northern dragon. You gotta be careful. So, but yeah, no big deals there.
Wow. That's cool. I guess there's like a difference between here and southern Texas. Like, Brownsville's a lot hotter than Houston.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's a lot of difference there.
I've never been there.
Yeah, you've got like deserts and stuff like that. Like most people don't think of deserts and Canada, but there's some areas that are super dry. And I mean, I know some gardener guys up north, and they operate in kind of a very dry environment because it's almost a desert. It's not an actual desert like how Texans think of deserts, because they think of Arizona and they think of like what's that? West Texas and
New
stuff.
Mexico, West Texas. Yeah.
But when it's dry, it's like, as it is in Canada, there's like sort of desert areas up there where it's just dry. And I'm like, now that I've lived up north for a while, I kind of get it, because we're right next to the lake. I mean, literally, like it's like 5 miles away, 10 at the most. And yet when the cold weather hits, it's like there's like no humidity, like at all. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, it's like, to me, that's crazy. It's like once the temperature starts getting cold enough, there's like no humidity. Like the dehumidifier that we run during the summer just stops. And like, that's kind of one of my signs that winter's starting, is the dehumidifier. I have to stop, pulling the water out of the dehumidifier. I'm like, so we're getting close to winter now. It's like, okay.
I do a number on your sinuses, though.
Yeah, but I don't mind it too much. It hasn't been too much. It's been a little bit to get rid of.
I'd much rather go with no humidity than the sweltering soup you live in the South.
Mm-hmm. But you get used to it, and you find a way to add humidity. You can run showers. You can actually have like showers actually add a ton of humidity into the air in a house. Like, because if you take a shower on a regular basis, you're adding a ton of humidity in the air. If you're cooking dinner, you're adding a ton of humidity in food, or not food, but a ton of water and stuff into the air by just cooking. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
So
tricks you learn living in the frozen tundra. Yeah.
So it's not too bad.
So what are we talking about tonight?
Deserts.
Do we have anything on the agenda besides deserts?
I think we were talking about Sahara, the movie. It's like we had a mystery, and then we had, I think we had Instant Family, but Sahara
Instant Family, yes.
Yeah, Instant Family, and now it's like, I like Sahara. It's a fun Matthew McConaughey movie. It's totally, funny, but I'm like, got a funny premise, but it's like, you totally cannot take this show seriously. It's totally like,
no.
Okay, sure.
The
So
opposite of anything serious.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a funny one.
No, I did watch it. I watched it like last I don't know, like last day or something. I don't remember. It was a while ago. And then
Yeah.
like had several nights with no sleep. So I don't know, like you're gonna have to jog my memory on kind of what it's about.
Yeah, it was it's to sort of give it a starting point. It's basically the premise is so outlandish that it's like okay, and yet it plays such a small part in the movie. The main point is that Matthew McConaughey is a you know what do you call it, an Indiana Jones type figure, and
Like a
he's
treasure hunter.
yeah treasure hunter, legit, and he goes out and he's trying to try to find his life, what do you call it, his life passion or his life vision is he's trying to yeah, just be careful with it. He's trying to find this ironclad ship that the Confederate States of America made during World War II. And I'm like, that's neat in itself. I'm like, okay, that's who would an
In the
ironclad
movie
that would.
called Sahara.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm still not sure exactly how. But then, how can we make this interesting? I mean, yeah, that's neat. How can we get the audience interested in this, like this ironclad? I mean, what's so special about it? I mean, ooh, yeah, it's a great historical thing that they have an ironclad, but what can we make special? What if we filled it with gold? Like what?
Yeah.
What are you
So it's
talking
filled
about?
with Confederate. Yeah. Okay. So
I'm
yeah,
like,
that was the opening
seriously?
scene. The
Yeah,
opening scene really surprised me because it's called Sahara and it's got
yeah,
Matthew McConaughey, and I'm going into it thinking, okay, it's going to be like
and
90
yeah,
something with adventures in the desert. And the opening scene is night,
yeah.
last battle of the Civil War, and there's Confederate ironclad boat that's being loaded up with gold, and they're like running a blockade. I'm like, what in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I thought we were going to be in Africa, but here we
Yep.
are in the Civil War. It was a great opening scene. I
And it
actually
was
really
well
loved
done
it
too. Yeah,
because
I really like that opening scene.
the
I agree with you.
I went and got the soundtrack and added it to my Spotify playlist because
Oh,
that
really?
that that scene, the
Yeah.
music in that worked
Dun,
really
dun,
really
dun, dun.
well.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
good.
yeah. And
hopefully,
so
hopefully, I
the
don't
the
get a
way but the way
copyright
the way
strike
the
there,
way it
YouTube.
transitions though, it does transition. They load it up
Yeah.
with gold, and you're like, okay, something's weird. And then they go silent and go into the fog to try
Yeah.
and get past the Union blockade, and you don't know if they make it or not. You don't
Yep.
know if they're sunk. You don't know if they escape. It
Yep.
just ship just disappears quietly into the fog, and
Mm-hmm.
then now we're looking at early 2000s World Health Organization
Yeah.
looking at somebody in Nigeria. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so now once again we're in Africa now,
Yeah.
in the Sahara.
Yeah.
And now we're in the Civil War, and there's still no treasure hunting. There's World Health Organization,
Yep.
so it's kind of confusing going from one to the other. But if
Mm-hmm.
you just go with it and you
Yeah.
just let things happen and don't think about it too much, the
Exactly.
action is really fun.
Yeah. And the music, it's got a, I won't call it high production value, but has a good production value to where it's entertaining, it keeps you going, and it's actually quite a bit of fun to watch. You know.
Oh, yes. No, now my notes are coming back to me. I was making
Mm-hmm.
mental notes, and then like I said, I didn't sleep, and then they all went away. But
No, I hear
now
you.
I'm remembering. The cinematography I thought was really neat. Like the color palette that they used.
Oh yeah.
Each movie
Mm-hmm.
they're very very intentional. At least the good ones. They're very very intentional about the color.
Mm-hmm.
This one was gorgeous.
Wasn't
It
it?
had like this gold kind of sheen throughout the whole thing, like in every scene,
Yep.
except for that first one.
Yep.
Except for the first one that was at night. Um, every scene was kind of had this yellow tint to it almost. I don't know how they achieved that, but
Yeah.
even in places where it's not necessarily desert and with all the sand everywhere, you think about that picture where you're looking at the Sahara and it's covered in sand and you're just seeing this gold with blue sky. Imagine that color scheme, but in urban Nigeria and
Yep.
on the Niger River and in a warlord's hideout or base
Mm-hmm.
and all that. And they do eventually make it to the Sahara, so you get that
Yeah.
that that scene. But the visual, it's really really gorgeous the whole way
Yeah.
through.
It reminds me a lot of like how some other movies do it, um, like The Matrix. They give everything a green hue. It's like it's
Ah,
similar.
yeah,
It's not
exactly.
over the top. It's not as obvious as The Matrix, but I definitely know what you mean. It has a very bright, glowy kind
Mhm.
of feel, and
Sunny,
it's an
sunny.
upbeat, yeah, sunny, upbeat kind of thing. And I think it matches the whole idea of we're on a treasure hunt. Like, okay, we
Yeah,
know the
everything
treasure.
feels like gold all the time.
Yeah, and we technically kind of know that the gold exists because in the beginning scene they show loading up all these things that say Confederate States of America, these gold, you know, all this gold and stuff is loaded up. You don't actually see it, but you see them loading these containers onto the thing that say treasury or gold or whatever. I forget exactly what it says, but it's obvious that it's a real thing. There's something happening here that's important for later on, and then it's like, ooh, I want to see the gold now. Like, if there's gold in there, I want to know what's in those containers, and it
But
gets you pulled in. I'm
as
like,
far
okay, come on, McConaughey,
but
let's
as far
find
as
this gold.
plot as far as the plot goes, the gold hardly has
Yeah,
any effect on it.
nope,
I mean,
it plays
he
no
says at one
part.
point that
Yeah,
five of these gold coins ever made, and I have just found the fifth one, which is a sign that we're on the right track. He never says that they're looking for chests of these gold coins. He says there's only five, so he doesn't know that there's gold. He only wants the
exactly.
ironclad, which everyone think. No, the movie is crazy. It's completely
Yeah,
preposterous.
it's totally out there.
But it says so because all of the other characters are telling Matthew McConaughey's character
Yeah,
that he is crazy and preposterous.
yeah. And what's
So
he
just
what's
because he turns out to be right
but yeah, and
is
the main,
insane.
yeah, and it's not so much a gold, hunt. They're not really searching for gold. It's like a lot of these guys that are doing this for a living. A lot of them are out there to find it. They were out there to find the Titanic in Titanic. Those
Mhm.
guys. Actually, they were doing other stuff too. That's why they got the funding for it. But these guys are out there to find the ships. They're like, we found it. We get to go and look at it and see it. And that's kind of what this was. McConaughey was like playing that guy. He was like, I want to find this ironclad. I don't know where it is, but I know, I have an idea that it's out here, and I'm gonna go and find it. So that's what he did. It's like he's like that's his life. That's basically what's pushing him. He's like, I want to find this thing. It's not so much the gold; it's I want to find the ship. You know, and the audience
Yeah.
just gets pulled along because they're like, hey, but what are in these big boxes they're loading? McConaughey, you weren't here, but we know something you don't, and there's something in this boat. So,
Which again plays no role in the
yep,
plot.
yeah, but see, that's what I
But
thought
you
was
haven't even
fun.
talked about
It's just like
haven't
it's
even talked about the plot yet. You've
mhm,
talked about the premise.
yep,
The premise is that Matthew McConaughey is going to find a Civil War ironclad that's buried in the Sahara.
mhm,
That's the premise. That's not what moves any of the action along.
mhm,
What moves the action along is a plague, like an epidemic
yeah,
that is infecting Nigeria, but it seems to be coming from Mali,
yep,
where there's a civil war and in the Sahara. And
yep,
so this World Health Organization, these are the ones actually driving the plot. So Penelope Cruz's character and her sidekick for the first part of the movie,
yep,
they're trying to get to Mali, but
mhm,
they can't go because the World Health Organization won't let them. But they're the ones on
yeah.
the ground that
Well,
see the
dangerous
problem,
place
and nobody
too.
else sees the problem. Crazily enough, later on, we discover that this problem is going to be of global climate catastrophe
Yeah.
if it's not stopped. And so they just raise the stakes from a localized
The-
epidemic to world
yeah.
destruction.
A pandemic right now, I think, resonates with a lot of people. So when you watch this show
Does.
now, it's just kind of like, well, what? The pandemic wasn't enough for y'all? It's just like a global
No, no,
like
no. They
disease.
had to destroy the oceans if you don't stop this.
Yeah. So,
Right.
but I
It's
thought it
not
was.
even clear what it's going to do.
Yeah, and what I find interesting is you don't see too many of these actors in some of these movies, but I love the trio that they had in this movie. What was it? Matthew McConaughey, the supporting character, the comic relief guy. I forget exactly what
Oh
he's in,
yeah,
but he is
get his
hilarious.
name.
Those two
Yeah,
played
he
off
did
of
a great job.
those two played off of each other so well. And then you also had, was it the Dwight Schrute character from The Office. He was in this movie. Most people don't realize that, and he doesn't
He
play.
didn't look the same.
He doesn't play the same character, but he plays a really good supporting character, and it's just like he's just enough funny for this movie, and I'm like, awesome. Matthew McConaughey. You've got this other comedy guy, and then
You
you've
gotta
got
find his
Dwight.
name. You
Those
gotta find his name.
yeah
I'll look it up.
yeah, but it's just like the Dwight Schrute character, and it's just like it's such outside of his normal character that I think people are used to seeing, that it's nice to see him in a good movie. So
Yeah, I was surprised when I saw that Rainn Wilson was in it.
Rainn Wilson's
Turns out
definitely
he's like plays a nerd, like a
Peter,
geek who's the technical guy. Um, uh,
and he didn't play it
and
over the top
he's
too, which
like,
I like.
he's exactly. He didn't steal the spotlight. He's a side character, and he
Yeah.
knows he's a side character, and he plays it like a side character. But he
Mhm.
plays the side character spot on.
Yeah,
So
it was like Matthew
that's
McConaughey. You had the other supporting character. I forget the two character, and then you had Rainn Wilson. And it was just like it was kind of like that. It was that tier, and it was just like it was. The other guy was so funny. It's just like they kept
Steve
interjecting.
Zahn.
Steve Zahn, he was so funny. I was like, I mean, it's hard to. It's amazing how like being a support character kind of frees you up, and it's just like he was just so funny in this movie. They gave him so many points. He's like, there were so many things like, okay, where Penelope Cruz is in trouble, and she's like, they sit there and talk to each other, and they're like, you know what, she's in trouble. I'm gonna go take care of the bomb. You take care of the girl. He's like, no, no, no. You take care of the girl. I'll take care of the bomb. It's like, okay.
Just totally
Cheers.
Like, you're the romantic lead. You go get the girl. I'll
Exactly.
get the bomb.
It was so obvious. He was just like, dude, no, you're the main character. He didn't say that, but it was such a great line. Those two played off of each other so well.
I know it's really funny because the movie doesn't take itself seriously.
Exactly.
Now, okay, I went and I looked up
nice.
I thought, oh, this is fun. How come I never really on my radar before?
Mhm.
I went and looked up the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah.
Guess what it got on Rotten Tomatoes?
I can only imagine.
38%.
Yeah.
The critics hated it.
Yeah.
Audience score was 53. So I mean, that's not much better.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
you gotta be in the mood.
There's no
movie.
chance I would have ever seen this movie because I was like in 2005. I was totally, checking Rotten Tomatoes before spending hard-earned money on a movie theater. When I went to a theater, it was splurging, and I wanted to be sure it was a good movie.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why did such a movie that I just had so much fun with get such terrible reviews? And the quotes here are funny though. The quotes here are really funny. Richard Roper says, "It drove me crazy. It made National Treasure look like a documentary."
Oh yeah, they probably came out at the same time or something. Probably just didn't have much to compare it to.
A mediocrity wrapped inside a banality, toasted in a nice, fresh cliche.
It was
okay.
A fun time.
Here's a guy who labeled it fresh. Matthew Lucas from 2019 apparently says a breezy summer action thriller that knows just what it is and has a ball being just that.
Yeah,
exactly.
It ages well.
That's it did seem to age well. Like we can look at it and laugh at it because we're not taking it too seriously. But maybe in 2005 it was just not the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's not. That's just it. Sometimes you run across a movie and they become a classic. Like what was it? A Wonderful Life actually was a horribly reviewed movie. People hated that movie. The reason it got so much playtime on television is I think it didn't have rights or anything, so people would just put it on the air because it didn't cost them anything. So that's why it became such a classic. Is because everyone was playing it all the time around Christmas, and it's only become a classic over time because of that. And it was just like, okay, we get it. It's just like, and sometimes some movies do that. Matrix didn't do all that well the first time around, but it did well, on TV. There's some movies that do that. I think this one's one that, if given enough time, I think could, it's not super awesome, but it's a fun movie to go watch.
Yeah, as long as you expect it to be crazy and it doesn't take itself too seriously. The action's pretty fun. And like there's a lot of action. It moves really fast from one thing to the next.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not supposed to make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, and to not bring it too far, but it's just like you have the the beginning intro where they're introducing where they're trying to get to at the end of the movie as far as trying to find this ironclad. Then they introduce the World Health Organization characters as far as Penelope Cruz, if she still goes by that or not, but I always call her Penelope Cruz because that's how I've always known her. But it's just like, and then they also had they introduced the World Health Organization kind of group, and then they're basically on this ride. They're he finds a piece of gold, like you said, as far as like, oh hey, I found the last fifth gold piece. Why is it in Africa? So
Hmm.
now that they're on a mission, they're like, okay, let's go get get a boat and let's
the
go
ones we
research
the
it.
ones we
And
really care about are the doctors who are
mm-hmm.
going to research the plague, and
Yep.
they're just kind of getting a ride with the treasure hunters.
Yep.
And so even though you're thinking all the whole time, well, what about that ironclad? Why are we carrying? Yeah, so they're, oh, I see. So they're going up there and they're getting the plague, but the plague is the thing, the real mystery.
Yeah.
Like the audience wants to know what's causing this plague and why are there people trying to kill these doctors?
Yep.
And
And
then
they
you find
drop.
out it's the
Mm-hmm.
something about the Civil War thing.
Yeah, and they drop off the doctors, and then they're off on their own. I love this part. It's
Hmm.
like they have, they start going after, like they get stopped or something like that, or try to get pulled over on in their boat, because they're going further down the river after they've dropped the doctors off. And what's interesting is that they know they're in trouble, and they start getting shot at and stuff like that, and they're like, okay, something's not right here. And what's interesting is that they're basically saying at some point along the line is they're like, okay, this isn't they were asking about the doctors. This isn't about anything we're doing. So it's like we need to go figure out what they're up to because they're in a lot of trouble or something they're involved with is more important than this treasure hunt that we're on. So it's just like we're like, okay, we dropped the doctors off, but we're going to continue on to our gold, our like our search for our gold treasure. We're still, we were all like, okay, we put the doctors, we helped them out, great, we did our part, and the audience is on their way to the treasure hunt.
We're gonna go find the boat,
Yeah,
but there's this plague that's happening. Okay, we know
yeah,
we're going back to the plague because that was never solved.
yeah. But it was like, oh, we're going on our treasure hunt now, and this is like, man, they're keep bringing. It's like the audience just keeps brought back to this the World Health Organization, like they like with this plague, and they're like, well, we should really go check this out. I mean,
Yeah,
it's done in
so
such a
that's actually
comedic way that it's really well done. I like it. It's fun. You
that's
actually
actually
care.
one of the things that makes it kind of fun is
Hmm.
that this is this wacky kind of going back and forth between these two mystery plot points that have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
Hmm.
Um, and so here's another quote from a review that I thought, if you take that we just talked about, you and I, and when you spin it negative, you get this, where Jessica Winter from the Village Voice says, Sahara is many things, but it is not a movie. It is the skull-splitting cacophony of 21 producers and 4 screenwriters standing in the same room shouting into their cell phones. And I can see where she gets that from.
Yeah.
There is just a lot of stuff thrown at you that seems unrelated, and things just happen without a lot of causality. But that was one of the things that I actually enjoyed about it. I enjoyed turning my brain off and
Hmm.
just letting things happen.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, yeah, so there's like a boat that we're searching for in the desert, but then now there's a plague, and these guys realize that they need to go help out the doctors because they're in danger, and so they end up, going on that mission. But that mission
Hmm.
leads them back to
And
the boat. I
yeah.
was guessing, and I was wrong, but I was guessing that the treasure on the boat was going to be the cause of the plague. But
Hmm.
they kept
It
letting you
kind of, yeah.
know
I know what you
that
mean.
that the that the dictator of Mali knew about it and
Hmm.
was hiding something. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can't tell what he's hiding. So is he hiding the boat? Why would he care about that? And how could the boat be causing a plague down
Yeah.
in Nigeria? And like, okay, this is,
I
so
know
my
it's
guess was totally
confusing.
wrong. That was not it.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and they had
Um,
like, and what I thought was interesting along those lines is that when they were trying to, oh gosh, I lost my train of thought, but it was basically to go along with what you were saying is that they kept teasing this whole plague thing. But what's interesting is at some point he gets this odd idea to just go talk to the local. mosque or something like that. Be like, maybe there's some scrolls with information on it. I'm like, did he really just go to the local like school and just ask for scrolls of something that might happened a long time ago? And sure enough,
And sure
he found
enough,
it for more
it's
information.
written right here. There was a boat that came up the river. It was weird. And it's
Yeah.
written down in their archives.
I'm like, it's like I love there was one line where it's like we don't find names to find places or something, but we find places by events or something. Don't find events by
Oh yeah, it was
places.
dates and events.
Yeah,
Dates and
dates and
events. He
events. It was
said,
just like he had a roast. It was
so
funny.
the imam asks Matthew McConaughey, like, so what are you looking for? And Matthew McConaughey said it was 1868 or 1865 or something. And the imam says, well, we don't use dates to find events. We use events to find dates. And so then he had to say, okay, so it would have been a boat like sailing up the river with gold and from America, and then like
Yeah,
with I made it of iron.
yeah.
And so they're like, so those ring a bell.
Hmm.
They go
Well,
look it up.
yeah. And what I find interesting is that this is part of the misdirection I think that you were talking about is that they talk about this boat having the Black Death or something like that. So it's also like, whoa, maybe the boat does have something to do with the plague, like because
But
these
it
people
didn't.
were sick. And I'm like,
No.
it's a little bit of misdirection. So
I think
not great
misdirection is
misdirection,
giving it
but it
too much
was,
credit.
yeah, it was,
No, misdirection is too much, giving it too much credit. This movie was not thought out as
yeah,
well as Instant Family. Instant Family,
yeah.
was very intentional the whole way through.
Oh goodness,
Sometimes too
yeah,
much. Sometimes too much. But this
yeah.
movie was the opposite. They're just like, whoa, this sounds cool. Let's throw it in. Whoa, this sounds cool. Let's throw
I
it in.
know, yeah,
So, but the funny thing is that fruit salad of a plot actually had some really good direction to it. I think that
yeah.
the actors were good and the director was good.
Hmm.
And so it came out pretty well.
Yeah.
I told you like a week or two ago, I was watching Cobra Kai, um,
Hmm.
and watching, and it's that one's got a great plot. Like I think it's a little melodramatic, but it's
Yeah.
holding me in. Acting is not good in that. Even the main guys from the original Karate Kid, maybe especially the main guys from the original Karate Kid, act because they were the original guys,
Mm,
but
yeah.
their acting is not good. So when I was watching Sahara and I had been watching, Cobra Kai right before that, I'm like, oh, okay, right. This is like a crappy plot, but great acting, and I'm enjoying this.
Hmm.
Whereas Cobra Kai, I'm like, okay, I'm getting through the acting, but the plot's what's holding me.
Yeah. Sure. It's
It's an
good
interesting
plot.
juxtaposition, but that shows that there's something for Matthew McConaughey and Steve Zahn and Penelope Cruz and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, some people aren't crazy about Matthew McConaughey's, I don't want to say acting because that's not it. It's more that, his type of movies. Like I like some
Oh
of
yeah.
his stuff. And I'm like, I think Failure to Launch is, I think, one of my favorites. I kind of like that one. This one's also, Sahara is also another one that I really like. I could tell he had fun with it and he enjoyed it. He embraced, Matthew McConaughey is one of those guys that he just embraces who he is and he knows what he can do on screen and how he can do it, and it's he just really sells it really well. So I think a lot of people like him too because he's from Texas and whatnot. So people
That's
love that.
there you go. You can't, it's hard to dislike somebody from Texas, right?
Well, it's more than his accent. People love that accent, and they're like, there's still people in Texas in the right spots that they have really thick accents. German,
Hmm.
Czech type accents, and every once in a while you run across one, and it's like it's really neat to hear the
Yeah,
English language with an accent. So
not so much in Houston because
mm,
Houston's getting too cosmopolitan. Like, people
mm,
like me coming from California, bringing our own accents with us, and we don't know all the Texan history and stuff. It's just big city. But
yeah,
whenever on my radio show, whenever I interview somebody, I always ask, "Are you a native Houstonian?" And oh yeah, it's very neat when I come across a native Houstonian, they can tell me the history of this place. And
yeah,
I was given a presentation and I did this joke with the radio bumper stickers and they're like, "Oh, you don't need to pick one of these up. I've got my volunteers putting them on your car right now."
yeah.
Everyone always laughs at that, but this is the first time someone came to me afterward and said, "You stole that joke from Gillies." I'm like, Gillies? Well, he's like, that was a bar over in Pasadena, Texas, where
Oh yeah.
everyone knows that if you park there, you got to leave your windshield wiper up, otherwise you're gonna get a bumper sticker on your car.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's so funny. Funny that happened. Anyway, how did I get off on that? Oh yeah,
We
native
were talking
Houstonian
Houston
Matthew
students.
McConaughey, Uvalde, Texas.
Yeah.
Speaking of Uvalde, we have a Guadalupe Radio Network station in Uvalde,
Oh, cool.
Matthew McConaughey's hometown.
Nice. I wonder if they could get him
No
on.
idea what bearing that has on anything, but can I give away the end of the movie? I mean, this is like the one real
Well,
surprise in the movie.
well, it's. I mean, we can, but I was gonna. I think. Where are we at in the plot point? I mean, we haven't mentioned the
The
facility.
evil dictator.
The facility. Well, there's the evil
Oh yeah,
dictator.
like
There's the evil
the evil dictator
dictator, but
who.
there's also this like facility that
Makes no
reminds
sense.
me, and I mentioned this to you, that it was kind of like a 007. It's like, dude, there's this facility out in the middle of the desert, and it's just a solar plant with no outgoing power lines. It's just like, and I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah,
like, what is this? It sounds like a 007 plot or something like that. Like, he's building a
yeah.
solar plant to like blow up satellites or something. What is this guy doing?
I
So
can't even. I couldn't even tell what it was for.
yeah,
But apparently, this solar plant is generating so much toxic waste that it's causing a global catastrophe.
yeah. Do they even say where the
But
toxic waste is coming from? I mean,
no,
where is all this
no.
toxic waste
It
coming
keeps.
from? They got a really
Yeah,
brand new solar plant here. Why aren't you using that?
I think they
There's a lot
are.
of
And the solar
potholes.
plant, the solar plant, which is a field of mirror. It's a beautiful shot. I
Oh
mean, think
yeah.
of you're in now. We're in the Sahara, and you've got this solar plant, which is like a giant football field of mirrors pointed
Hmm.
at a giant tower. So it's like really playing around with the light a lot and that yellow sheen the whole time. Absolutely
Hmm.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
But this solar plant, you're not sure what it's doing. This businessman who's in league with the evil dictator,
Hmm.
um, is like you kind of like him because
Yeah.
he doesn't seem to realize that he's causing a global catastrophe,
Yeah.
and but then he really is responsible for all the bad stuff that happens. You end up not liking him,
Yeah.
but he tries to once he does learn, oh no, I'm the cause of all the bad things. I didn't realize it. What does he do? He tries to cover it up by blowing up his plant, blowing up all the toxic waste, which is not going to do anything,
Yeah.
save anything. It could only cover his tracks, maybe.
Yeah. So I'm
And
like,
so there's like these fights with these assassins on top of this giant tower
mm,
and trying to defuse the bomb and save the girl while the bad guy's getting away in a helicopter
hmm.
in the desert with these mirrors. It doesn't make any sense.
It sounds so
What is the
funny
solar
though.
plant trying to do? Is it storing up power for something? Is he and how is it creating the toxic waste? So the problem was this
Yeah.
waste that he's burying
Yeah.
in the middle of the desert, which you'd think would be the safest place to bury it,
Yeah.
is leaching into an underground river,
Hmm.
which the underground river is not how the boat got there, but
Yeah.
it's related to how the boat got there, maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's
It
leaching
just
into
has
an
to do with
underground river
water. I
that's
think it just
flowing
has to do with water tables as well. That
into the
is the only point
Niger
they were making.
River.
Yeah.
And the Niger River is carrying it down to the ocean, not like immediately, but slowly.
Hmm.
And it's causing this plague along the way, and it's growing this red algae.
Yeah.
And this red algae is going to clog everything up. And Rainn Wilson's character is the one that discovers this, so that their home
Hmm.
base with the admiral of the treasure hunters, he's the one that's actually going to be bringing in the cavalry,
Hmm.
quote unquote, cavalry at the right time. But he's the one that discovers that if the red algae from that's growing on
Freshwater
this
aquifer.
freshwater, no, right.
No.
But it's the toxic waste. The red algae is growing on the toxic waste and causing plagues on the
Hmm.
people around it. And if it gets to the ocean, it's going to change the salinity of the ocean so that this red algae overgrows and spreads throughout the entire world, destroying all ocean life and causing massive plagues on every
Yeah.
coastline in the world.
It's like,
Yeah.
so it's not just
Like
a
I said,
plague;
you
it's an
turn your brain off.
ecological
You
plague.
just turn your brain off.
Yeah. It's
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 not,
pretty
it
nuts.
makes no sense. So let's just go with it.
Yeah.
You have these gorgeous shots. We have to stop this bomb so
Yeah.
that we can get this waste out of the ground
Yeah.
so that we can save the world.
I
Okay,
still I still don't understand
I
why.
got you.
I still don't understand why the bad guy had to blow up his own plant. I'm like, dude, you're still in a country that's controlled by a dictator. What makes you think you got to blow it up? I mean, seriously.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what?
And why was the dictator the one flying the helicopter trying to chase down the good guys? I mean,
Well,
you've got minions to do that. You don't need to do it yourself.
I don't know.
He's
But
like,
yeah,
no,
yeah, then he
these are
comes in,
mine.
he's starting to chase, trying to deal with these guys because apparently these guys aren't, no one can catch McConaughey and his comedic relief guy.
Right.
It's just like,
So we end up with a boat chase
yeah.
and the camel chase with the trains
Mm-hmm.
and the car chase,
Car chase, yep.
and then the car chase with the boat chase. Um, we also have the foot chase through the streets
Yep.
and also the fighting with the assassins on top of the roofs.
Yeah. It's like every cliche of every like
Yeah.
Indiana Jones all in one movie. It's so much fun. That's all I can say is if someone had fun making this movie. Like, okay, how about we have a fight on top of the solar plant? Like, yes, they do this. There's a fight on top of the solar plant. It's just like it's so
Mhm.
well done. It's so fun. That's all I can explain to this movie.
What I don't really understand was why the assassins were trying to kill the doctors to begin with. How they knew the doctors were there and why they were trying to kill them is somehow related to the dictator?
Yeah, I think those guys were. I think there was assassins that were related to the dictator, but also to the business guy, but more directly to the business guy. But you would figure that the assassin would tell the business guy what's going on, But I guess he's
Yeah,
just
that
there to
didn't
cover
happen.
up problems. I don't know. I feel like no one's
Anyway,
communicating within a dictatorship. Maybe that's how that works.
so yeah, so it made no sense,
Yeah,
but we had fun
yeah,
because you're
it's
throwing all this stuff
believable.
together
Yeah,
and you just,
you're.
but the pacing
Mm-hmm.
of it is, and the action scenes are well shot,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, the acting, comedic relief, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and what really I kept coming back to was just how absolutely beautiful it was.
Mm-hmm.
I went and looked up some movie screenshots of it
Yep.
because it's just cinemagraphically wonderful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to look at, and the music plays really well. So I
Mm-hmm.
think the score and the cinematography, it really gets a lot of points for those, and that makes up for a lot of deficiencies in the plot,
Yeah.
because it's just a beautiful experience. And a lot of times, um, I actually get impatient with movies that ignore the cinema. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, story's probably the most important thing,
Yeah.
um, but you can't ignore the cinema just to tell a story with dialogue.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what radio plays are for. That's what
Yeah.
books are for. That's
And
what podcasts are for. If you're doing a movie, you need to think about what it looks like,
mm-hmm.
and that Sahara actually comes up well in that regard. Um, I don't know. Maybe someone more expert with me would actually see that color palette and critique it and say, no, 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 it's way too much. It's overdone. It's a melodramatic gold that's shining through the whole movie. So I don't know. But personally, as just a casual movie watcher, enjoyed it and I thought it really worked out well. Um, but that's one of those things where a movie that's just all dialogue, all talking heads, I get impatient with that if it doesn't have good visuals to go along with it.
Yeah. There's. I'm trying to look it up right now, but my wife had me watch this movie that Robin Williams was in. It was like free. Trying to remember what it was called. It was basically him running for president or something. Here it is. Man of the Year. Man of the Year.
Man of the Year.
Worst movie ever. This is horrible. I mean, it is just a disaster of a movie. I'm like, it must have been. They must not have been able to control Robin Williams because it was just all over the place. I didn't. None of the storyline. You should watch it. Is just a monument to like, wow, how did y'all even get that? In the theater because it was just
But is it fun?
no, it wasn't. It was a
But it's not
great
fun. So,
premise, but it was a. I mean,
so
it's really hard to make Robin Williams not funny. But man, they were actually going out of their way to make him not funny, and I'm like, dude, that's like what he's good at.
so how does a movie like Sahara, which has a fruit salad for a plot, come off so well? when Man of the Year with a great actor like Robin Williams doesn't.
Well, he's the point I'm making is the fact that you can have a great idea, but if you have poor execution, it's bad. I mean, even though you have, let's say, let's call it mediocre, as far as Sahara, dude, they had a great execution on so many different areas. The comedic relief, the lead actor was good. The storyline, even though kind of all over the place, really tied together well. They tied the parts together. They pushed the audience along with the storyline in a way that was just fun. And I'm like,
Can I get? Can
yeah.
I give away the ending? Can I give
Oh,
away
are
the
we
ending
at the
now?
ending yet? I mean, let me see. Yeah,
No, but I
yeah, I
want.
think we're at
But
the
you
ending.
keep
Yeah,
you keep
yeah,
saying things that maybe we're
yeah.
about
Go
tying it
for it now.
together, and
Yeah,
it's like
go
just
for it. There,
okay.
we're there yet
Deus
now.
ex machina. The so you end up with a big climactic battle. They
Mm.
make it off of the solar tower,
Off the
and they're
solar
in a
tower.
jeep.
Yeah.
The solar tower, and they're in a jeep. I think,
No,
right?
no, they're in
I think
some
it's a jeep.
they're in some kind of. Well, no, I
No,
forget. No, yeah, never mind. There's this big fancy car that makes an
oh
appearance
yeah,
in
yeah.
it.
It's a fancy car. It's like a
I
Rolls,
can't.
some sort of like Rolls
Yeah,
Royce
I
hot rod
I
that the
can't remember if
dictator
that's
owns,
the
and
one.
they managed to steal from it.
I just
I
can't
don't remember
remember
the
if that's
model
the
of the
one they're
car.
in at the end. So
Yeah, it's like a fancy hot rod that they're
yeah.
racing through the desert, being chased by tanks and a helicopter. And
Because that they would survive
because
that.
oh, the car wouldn't even run on the sand, but ignore
Yeah,
that. They're
thank
racing
you for
the hot
noticing
rod through
that.
the desert. So what do they do to kind of throw this helicopter that's chasing them with an evil dictator off their trail? They randomly throw dynamite into the side of a sand dune.
Yeah, I know.
They're literally racing through the desert in a hot rod, throwing dynamite randomly into the side of a hill. And what happens? They magically uncover the ironclad from the first scene of the movie. It's just the place that they happen to be throwing. Like,
Yeah,
you cannot come up with a
hey,
more
look at that.
absurd coincidence, but it's majestically revealed. And oh,
Yeah.
there's their
It.
ironclad that they've been
Mhm.
looking for this whole movie, but they stopped looking for because there was more important things to take care of. But here it is. We just threw a piece of dynamite and boom, there it is.
We
If
get
only treasure
closure
hunting
on
were
the
this easy.
ironclad.
So they board the ship. They board this submerged in the sand ironclad and start fighting off these tanks
Hmm.
with and helicopters with Civil War
Yeah. And what I think is
cannons.
hilarious is that they have like 2 inch thick steel, panels on the walls, and it's like because that's
Yeah,
what the ironclad's made out of, and that way cannon fire could never, do it. And all of a sudden, the helicopter fires on it and pokes all these holes in this 2 inch steel, and they're like,
yeah.
"Really?" I
No, no.
they
He pointed that out. Yeah, like,
yeah, I
no,
know.
don't worry, we're safe in here. This is 2 inch thick steel, and he's the history expert, so he knows his stuff. And
Yep.
then the next second, bullet holes come through, and he's like, "Oh my
Swiss
gosh,
cheese.
armor piercing bullets!" So we can't hide from the bullets in here. We have to fight back.
Yeah, I know. We're not gonna be able to just hunker down in here. So
Why why do some things have to have explanations when other things don't?
it's
Like
just
throwing
yeah,
dynamite randomly into a hillside,
yeah.
magically revealing their long lost, thing. That doesn't
But
need
there
an explanation.
but there
But
was so
the
much
fact that
sand. It was like we
bullet
were
holes can
hiding
punch
in the
through
dust
there.
cloud. Like what? I don't
Right.
think that
But the fact
flies.
but the fact that the bullet holes pierce through that needs an explanation. Like
Yeah.
they have to explain one thing, but they don't have to explain the bigger thing.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. It's fine.
Well,
It's
we're
fine.
just gonna forget about that. Let's start poking holes in this in the boat so we can deal with that issue. Let's forget about the dynamite because the dynamite did not damage the ironclad. All it did was push the
Exactly.
sand off.
No, I know, right?
But those armored piercing bullets, they went right through
Cannonballs,
that steel.
armor-piercing bullets, right?
Oh
Oh,
my
but that
goodness.
actually ties back into it's a little bit of an Easter egg because
Yeah.
there was a scene earlier on where the dictator is like showing off this special bullet that he has. Like, you see this, and he's loading up his
Oh
Civil
yeah.
War era revolver that he's going to execute the good guy with. He's like, see that bullet? Made for me only. I'm the only one with these bullets. They cost 27 pounds each. That's what, like $75 each
Yeah.
bullet. And so he's like loading them in. And so that's the special bullet that you're supposed to realize can pierce through 2-inch thick steel that blocks cannonballs. Like,
Well,
okay,
he's got a
oh gosh.
supply. I think the point they're making is they have a supplier. Like, I could get all the
What
fancy
if
stuff if I want.
what if that is what the solar plant is for? What if you have to have immense amount of solar energy to be able to create these bullets that then create a lot of toxic waste in the smelting of it? What if?
Honestly, I think I think it's basically it's a plot point. Is like that's how this dictator's making money. He's buying other people's nuclear waste and basically saying that he can dispose of it cleanly through this plant that this business guy built. And I think that's where it is. It's like that's why he says that's why your payments
Oh,
to me continue. And I'm like,
oh
because
my word.
the businessman pays him, but it's like the businessman wants to stop because they're not taking care of what the little bit of you know toxic waste that's still left over and they're not dealing with. That's getting worse, and they're making tons of money saying they're getting rid of it, but it's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, sure. Like
Okay, but
that's our profit
this is all based
motives there.
this is all based on a Clive Cussler novel. So maybe it makes more sense
Yeah,
in the book.
but
Maybe the book was better.
yeah, and all I'm gonna say is that he was. He. I mean, as far as them making money, I still don't get why the businessman would blow up his business. Dude, I don't I mean, I get if he's making money somewhere else, but dude, if this is seriously an issue, I mean, just find another way to
It
deal with it,
seems
you know? I mean, they literally
yeah.
had like a captive labor force. I'm thinking you could probably clean it up. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
It
I mean, it's
seemed
a
like he was
lot of
just
holes.
trying to cover his tracks because the World Health
Yeah.
Organization was there, but
He's
that didn't
he's
make
a
much sense.
he's a reputable guy. He
But
needs to be,
but they had to get the bomb on there so that the bad guys had a timer, or the good guys had a timer to go against, because
yeah.
well, he said once that bomb goes off, we can't fix this, and the world is doomed because we can't stop the destruction of the
It'll be
ocean.
sealed in. Okay.
Sealed in, exactly. Now, for a movie called Sahara about the desert, there is a lot of water in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's gorgeous shots of the ocean
Yep.
and the rivers and the boat chase and then the ironclad boat. I almost thought they were doing something thematic with it. Visually, it came off as a theme. It means nothing in the plot, but it was really cool to see so much water next to so much sand.
Yeah.
Like, I thought at one point someone would call attention to it, like an ocean of sand versus the ocean of water, but no one ever said anything. But
I mean, the ironclad
visually, it
was
was
in
so
the
good.
sand. The ironclad was in the sand.
It was.
So
So the way this
make a
happened
valid
is
point.
the boat they fled across the ocean and went up the river, took a tributary, got sunk or stuck, and
Yeah.
then the tributary
During the flood.
moved
Yeah, during the flood, and then the
during a
floodwaters
flood.
were, you know, retreated.
Yeah, and then it got covered in sand.
But yeah, I mean, we have. I don't think we've come out and said, but yeah, when they were in the ironclad, and they were shooting up the place and whatnot. It's like I remember that that's when they discover there's actually a lot more gold on here than just those 5 pieces, because something goes in there and explodes and throws all this gold everywhere, and they're just looking around like,
We're
oh,
rich.
okay, there's a lot of gold here. It's like there's a lot of gold here, like stacked up like here, and I'm like, okay. So it's
Right, and so that's the payoff from
yep,
the first scene that has nothing connecting it in
yeah,
between, like because nobody else knew about it.
yeah,
We're
but
the only ones. The audience is the only ones that knew that gold was there.
yeah, it's like, well, what's the payoff at the end of the movie? It's like, oh yay, they saved the day, and he got the girl, and I'm like, it's almost like they were like, okay, what else can we add in? It's almost like they added in the ironclad after the fact, because it's like all the rest of the movie was done.
Almost.
It was just kind of like, let's add in an ironclad. In post, we'll add all these extra scenes in, and it'll tie it all together. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
sure. I could have seen that being the case, but I don't think that was. I think it was part of the book, and
it was
that's how it
based on
played
the
out.
novel, so
Yeah,
the novel had to have come up with most of that plot, I'm sure.
but yeah, in
Right.
the end, yeah, they
Recommend it as a great mindless fun movie.
Exactly. It's a
Right? So
fun show to watch.
ignore the negative reviews and just enjoy it.
Yeah. Just go in there, watch it, have fun. And it has it's a nice payoff at the end. So, and it's just like, I love the line that, one of the guys say, because an American, what do you call him? Bureaucrat is kind of like, we're curious. We know that y'all are excavating the ironclad now. We're curious. Is there anything on board that we should be concerned about? Or is there any gold? Because we know your guy says that there might have been gold. Is there gold? He's like, there's nothing on board this ship that belongs to the United States of America. Like, okay,
Exactly.
because it
Yes.
technically belonged to the Confederate States of America.
Confederate States of America. Yeah.
It's like, well,
Exactly.
y'all had y'all's
Gosh, man.
opportunity to fund our research.
Speaking of another great actor, we didn't even mention William H. Macy is the admiral. I mean, he's
Mm-hmm.
a side character too, but
Yep.
again, plays it spot on.
Yeah. Everyone had fun with this movie. It reminds me a little bit of the mystery movie, what is it, Knives Out, where you had these, not big actors, but you had everyone playing, you know I almost considered everyone as a support character, because it's like there's
Mhm.
times where McConaughey is not the lead. He's just the guy moving the ball down the field and just getting it to the ending place. It's almost like there were a lot of side characters. There were a lot of characters in this movie. You had like what, two bad guys. You had you know one, two, three people that were on McConaughey. No, four if you count the admiral. You had four people on
Mhm.
the good guys, and then you had the two doctors. So that's six. I mean, you had a lot of characters, and then you had the
And there were
rebels.
plenty of other characters that they talked to.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, they had a ton of characters they were interacting with. So, but definitely suggest it. It was a good one. So worth watching for you though, being one you'd never heard of.
I'm glad you suggested it. I am glad you suggested it because I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd like it too. It's like I like some of McConaughey's stuff, and I like. Have you seen Failure to Launch?
Oh no, I haven't.
That's another good one. It's got Jessica Parker in it, the one from Sex and the City. She's in it, but they play off of each other really well. It's another really funny movie. We'll save it for another day, but it's like
For another day.
we
Do two
can't do two
McConaughey's in a row.
McConaughey's in a row. I can only handle so much McConaughey.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it's just like, but yeah, it was a good one. I definitely suggest it. Do not see that movie I was mentioning. If Man of the Year,
Man of the Year.
I
Not worth
might
it.
force you to watch it one day just so we can talk about how bad it is. It was just like compared to like this, compared to so many other movies, it's horrible. I mean, 22 Rotten Tomatoes and 39 on the Metacritic. I don't know. Amazon nerfed all their stuff. They say it's like a 6, but it's not. It is not a
Hmm.
6. It is a 2 or a 3 movie. Amazon and Google nerf their stuff to get people to buy their stuff because they know that if something has a low rating, it's not going to sell. But if it has a
Mhm.
medium to a high rating, it will sell. So they went through, at least Amazon did about a year or so ago, nerfed all the reviews, and things that were like 2 stars shot up to about a 3 or 4 star rating. And I'm like,
Mm.
I take real umbrage with that. I think that's not cool, especially since they are the ones who bought IMDb, which was an informational service, and it puts more credence on these Rotten Tomatoes and Metacritic guys to be a more impartial, a more impartial character in rating these movies. Because Amazon has shown that they won't do it. Google, I doubt they're going to do an honest review of it. And Netflix used to be that way too, because they used to have a star rating and then they went to the thumbs up, thumb down thing. And that's not doing
Mhm.
anyone any good except for Netflix, because
It's
it
just
tells
for
only tells them
algorithmic
what it.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's proprietary information that only they can use then, and they can share or
Mhm.
sell to people. So,
Yeah.
but I liked it. I would, it's one of those movies I like to pull up once in a while and watch. It's fun. So,
I don't rewatch movies very often, but yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Just for fun. Just put
Well,
it on. Whatever scene you happen to land on is going to look great.
oh yeah, and as I get older, I'm like, what movies do I want to introduce my kids to? It's like which ones are worthy or aren't worthy. I wouldn't go out of my way to show this one to my kids, but it's like it's a fun movie. They would probably enjoy it.
Maybe maybe after they watch some of the good ones like Indiana
Oh yeah,
Jones.
yeah, very much so. I'm still waiting for we're waiting for the day. I've talked to my wife about this about when we're going to introduce Princess Bride. I'm like,
Uh,
oh, it's a little scary, a little
it is
scary, and I'm
for little
like,
kids. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, my kids, 8, 9 right now, and a little younger, or well, 7 and 8, almost 9.
I
But
know
it's
my
like,
8-year-old can't handle it.
yeah, even mine. I'm like, I don't. I think my kids can handle it. It's just I don't want to expose them to that yet. I mean, enjoy fun stuff right now. Mario Kart or like some kind of cartoon. Enjoy that for right now. You'll have plenty of time to watch this other stuff later on. Like my son's like wants to watch what is it, the new Star Wars shows, and I'm like, no, we're not watching those.
Eh,
And I'm like, I will get you a comic book, or I will get you a book, and you can read it as much as you want. I mean, if it is going to encourage you to read a book, you go for it. And I will get him a book from the library or something like that so he can watch it. But I'm not I'm not paying for those movies. The new ones,
mhm.
I'm just not crazy about. The older ones, even the
No,
ones with the episodes 1, 2, and 3 are okay, but it's just a matter of what to introduce to kids. And this was one that I mean, it's a fun time. It reminded me of the old 007 movies and the over the top villain, but it wasn't even over the top. It was just the setting was over the top. This guy owned a
hmm
solar plant. I'm like, okay, it's nice. So, fun movie.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, cool.
So what are we gonna watch next week?
I don't know. I might suggest Man of the Year.
Nope.
Okay, good. You don't.
X-ray.
I would
Not gonna
not
happen.
want to have to watch that again. Oh, that was brutal. But I don't know. We'll have to talk about it off air again. We'll have to. Do you have any thoughts?
I do.
Which
I
one are
do.
you thinking?
Well, I rented Psycho, like the Hitchcock movie,
Oh, okay.
as we were gonna watch it. I was gonna watch it with my wife for a movie discussion, which we didn't end up happening, but I still have it rented, so we're gonna watch it
Hmm.
at some point. So if you were interested in Alfred Hitchcock movies, going from the most mindless movie to probably the movie that's smarter than we are, um,
Hmm.
that could be a good one.
Is that an old one? Is that an old flick?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
50,
from like what 50s?
50s, 60s? Oh, yeah. I haven't seen
See,
it. I don't know if I have access to it. So I'd say maybe just because I don't know accessibility to the movie
if
by
you got
next week.
$4 to spare, you can get it on Amazon Prime to
Okay.
rent it.
So, but yeah, for me,
I
it would
could send
just
you
be
$4.
accessibility. So, but yeah, I've watched.
Libraries usually have classic movies too, so if you can check out a movie at a library, it might be there.
True. It's like I know that's where we get most of our movies nowadays. Movies and games. Like apparently you can rent
hmm
movies at some libraries, or some movies and some games at libraries for consoles and stuff. So that's been a
If
nice
your
little
library
discovery.
has movies, they probably have Psycho.
Yeah.
Because I mean, what library is not going to invest in like the collected works about Hitchcock?
A lot of them are like networks too. So if it's not at your local library, usually it's at a network of libraries that you can rent from. Like ours, you can search
hmm
for it and find it and watch and get it within a week. Like this last one, we rented what was it, 101 Dalmatians. My kids like 101 Dalmatians 2. Spot has something to do with it's Spot or something like that, and it's just like they've seen that one a dozen times and they really like it, so they want to go back and watch the original,
hmm
101 Dalmatians. So we rented that, and that took us a while to find, so or for it to get it
hmm
to us at least. So, and it came from a faraway library. So,
Other movies that I have lying around that I go to I check out at the library. Blues Brothers. I've never seen Blues
oh,
Brothers before,
really?
so I
That's
checked it out just for fun.
You checked it out?
Did never seen it. I have it lying over there. Another one, Spider-Man: Far From Home. Haven't seen it yet, but it's available at the library, so I got it.
Mm-hmm.
And Far From Home. What else? Elf.
Alpha's a
I've
good
never
one.
seen Elf.
Alpha's Alpha's a
Never seen
good
it.
one. It's one of those movies that's just fun to watch, but it's
Yeah,
not a classic or anything in my opinion.
not a classic. Okay,
It's not a
I will
classic.
I will keep that in
Blues
mind going
Brothers
into it.
is such a great
Is that
thing
a
because
classic?
Well, it's classic in the sense that it's got some great music to it. It celebrates the blues culture, and it's just a fun, fun time. So it's just I really like it. I mean,
There might be too much fun in a row if we do Sahara and then another fun movie. Maybe we should do a fun movie that's not fun. Scream, that was the other one. I got
Scream.
Scream because I'd never seen that one either, and it's Halloween season. So I'm like,
Ah.
okay, now that I've achieved enough maturity to watch horror movies without freaking out at age 38, I will watch a horror movie that's classic. So Scream, that's next on my list.
Well, cool. We'll nail it down off the screen or something, I guess, or let's see what we can get a
You pick
hold
one
of.
of those.
Okay.
Pick one of those.
I mean, I'm tempted to watch that classic, Alfred Hitchcock. It's just a matter of finding it.
You
So
should.
looks like a good one.
$4. I'll send you
$4.
$4 if that helps.
Well, cool. Well, cool. Anything else you want to cover for tonight?
I'm good, man. Thank you. That
Awesome.
was a fun discussion.
I know. I enjoyed it too, and it's good to have some fun ones too. I mean, not that any of the ones we haven't watched haven't been fun, but we should really torture ourselves with a bad one day and be like, okay, we're just gonna watch this. So, well,
Maybe.
cool. Well, thanks
Maybe.
everyone for dropping in and seeing us, and feel free to jump into the conversation if y'all ever have anything to say, and come back and check us out later. We usually show our show right around the same time, all the time.
Join our Facebook group at The Diggs Show.
Excellent. Well, y'all take care, and God bless.
Okay.